Welcome to Michelle's Podcast News, where we keep you updated on the latest happenings in the podcasting world. I'm your host, Michelle Tandler, and today we've got some exciting news from the New York Times. With the launch of The Daily in 2017, the New York Times began a push into audio journalism that changed the role it plays in people's lives. Since then, the Times has built a comprehensive audio report that helps listeners understand the world around them and has taught them how Times journalism is different from what they'll find elsewhere. The Times now reaches tens of millions of people who find Times podcasts more valuable than ever before. Along with their standalone audio application and the Listen tab in the New York Times application, the Times remains dedicated to getting their journalism to subscribers in more creative, accessible, and direct ways. Today, they're excited to expand where people can subscribe to listen to their world-class audio journalism by teaming up with Apple Podcasts and Spotify, two of the biggest platforms where listening is happening. On Apple Podcasts, listeners who purchase their subscription to the Times in the New York Times application will have their subscriptions automatically connected the next time they open Apple Podcasts. Listeners can also connect their subscriptions by signing into their account from the New York Times channel page and from individual show pages on Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, listeners can also connect their subscriptions by signing into their account from any of the New York Times podcasts. Listeners wishing to become subscribers from Spotify can follow a few simple steps to become subscribers and return to listening. Our audio journalism connects the Times with millions of people every day, and now we're taking a significant step forward in transforming this powerful connection into a key driver of our subscription business, said Ben Cotton, head of subscription growth at the Times. We believe that our audio journalism, featuring the most authoritative coverage of the most important and interesting stories, is worth paying for. And working closely with Apple Podcasts and Spotify has allowed us to create a seamless experience that's both intuitive to use and easy to understand. This collaboration allows us to expand our reach while making it easier than ever for listeners to not only engage more deeply with the Times, but support our original independent audio journalism by subscribing. Our audio report has gotten much bigger over the past few years, and it has a lot more breadth. We now have several news programs, more shows in tech, politics, culture, and lifestyle, and we've even expanded our shows in opinion and sports. We're excited to get all our shows in front of more people, added Paula Suchman, the Times' director of audio. A podcast subscription will cost $6 per month and $50 per year. New York Times. All access and home delivery subscribers will continue to have full access at no additional charge. Next up, Seton Hall University has just launched an exciting new podcast series called Innovate and Educate. This podcast is produced by the Teaching, Learning, and Technology Center, or TLTC, and aims to explore how technology is reshaping teaching and enhancing student success in higher education. The podcast is hosted by Kate Sierra, an instructional designer at the TLTC, and produced by Michael Pisciotta, a digital media specialist also at the TLTC. Each concise, 20-minute episode addresses a key question in educational technology, offering practical insights, real-world examples, and expert perspectives that can be easily implemented in classrooms, departments, or across entire institutions. Kate Sierra explained, Seton Hall faculty kept telling us how they were using technology to foster creativity and real-world skills, then shared updates on the impact it had on student outcomes and engagement. Although they have collaborated with the TLTC in faculty innovation grant showcases and other workshops, this podcast was created to give them the opportunity to share those ideas with others on campus, in their field, and beyond. The inaugural episode is titled, What EdTech Successfully Transformed Student Outcomes in Your Courses, and features two Seton Hall instructors who share their experiences using innovative educational technology. Listeners will hear success stories from Seton Hall's campuses, demonstrating that EdTech can take many forms and be effective for instructors at any stage of their tech integration journey. Future episodes will feature other faculty members who have integrated technology into their courses, including virtual reality, WordPress blogging, and a student voice and choice assignment. With new episodes dropping on the last Thursday of every month, Innovate and Educate is the go-to resource for educators seeking to integrate technology in ways that make a lasting impact on student learning. Renee Ticino, Director of Instructional Technology, added, "Our faculty are doing so many creative things in their courses. We are excited to share these innovations and best practices with the university community and beyond." To listen and subscribe to Innovate and Educate, visit the official podcast page on Seton Hall University's website and stay updated on the latest educational technology innovations. Next, let's dive into key points from the IATA World Sustainability Symposium, as reported by Aviation Week. The International Air Transport Association, or IATA, hosted its World Sustainability Symposium recently, focusing on the aviation industry's path to net zero emissions. One of the highlights was a discussion led by IATA's Senior Vice President for Sustainability, Marie Owens-Thompson. She touched on the challenges and opportunities of transitioning to net zero emissions, particularly in the realm of sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. Marie Owens-Thompson emphasized that while the aviation industry is committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050, there are significant hurdles to overcome, especially in the supply and scalability of sustainable aviation fuel. SAF is seen as one of the most promising solutions for reducing carbon emissions from aviation, but its current production levels are not sufficient to meet future demand. Thompson also highlighted the need for industry-wide collaboration and government support to scale up SAF production. She mentioned that investments in technology and infrastructure are crucial for making sustainable aviation fuel more accessible and affordable. The symposium also addressed other critical topics such as carbon offsetting, renewable energy integration, and advancements in aircraft technology. Experts from various sectors shared insights on how these elements can contribute to a more sustainable aviation industry. Marie Owens-Thompson concluded her talk by urging stakeholders to take immediate action. She stated, "The time to act is now. We cannot wait until 2050 to start making changes. The aviation industry must work together to innovate and invest in sustainable solutions today." For those interested in more in-depth discussions and expert insights from the IATA World Sustainability Symposium, you can listen to the full episode on Aviation Week's Window Seat podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. What's scarier than being in the spotlight? This week on the Cornell Keynotes podcast from eCornell, we are pleased to revisit one of our earliest and most popular episodes from the series. Acclaimed actor, physician, and professor at the Cornell College of Arts and Sciences, David Feldshuh, joins host Nick Phillips to share methods for speaking with confidence and moving past fear into connection. David Feldshuh brings a wealth of experience in both the arts and sciences, making him uniquely qualified to discuss the intricacies of public speaking. He emphasizes the importance of executive presence, which he defines as the ability to make the other person feel as if they are the most important person in the room. Feldshuh explains, ultimately, executive presence is about a relationship. Can you make the other person feel as if they are the most important person in the room and that you really want to connect with them? That you believe in what you're saying and you want them to get it? Feldshuh continues, it doesn't matter what your accent is. It doesn't matter whether you speak even loudly or softly, as long as you can be heard and if you can speak with a purpose. And this kind of training is not magic. When you think of public speaking, one of the reasons it's frightening is it seems like you don't know what is going on. It's a skill set. There's a series of skills that you can get to give yourself a way to move past the fear into connection. In this Recast episode titled Conquering Our Biggest Fear, Public Speaking, listeners will learn how to manage stage fright and connect with their audience effectively. Feldshuh's insights are not only practical, but also deeply rooted in his extensive career as an actor and educator. For those interested in further developing their public speaking and leadership skills, eCornell offers more than 200 online certificate programs. Among these is David Feldshuh's online Executive Presence Certificate Program, designed to help professionals advance their careers and enhance their organizational impact. To dive deeper into this topic and hear more from Cornell's most celebrated scholars and industry experts, visit Simplecast to read more about this episode. You can also subscribe to the Cornell Keynotes podcast for candid conversations on trending topics and current events. Stay connected with eCornell on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and X to get the latest updates on the Cornell Keynotes podcast and other educational offerings. Welcome to Michelle's Podcast News, where we keep you updated on the latest happenings in the podcasting world. I'm your host, Michelle Tandler, and today we've got some exciting news from the New York Times. Last week, just hours after exploding pagers and two-way radios killed dozens of people in Lebanon and injured hundreds more, a peculiar new show appeared on podcast apps. Pager Protocol isn't about the attacks aimed at Hezbollah members or the Israeli operatives believed to be behind them. It's an ongoing AI-generated 10-part series created to rapidly turn those unprecedented events into a fictional podcast. Launched September 18th, the day of the walkie-talkie explosions, Pager Protocol is akin to an audiobook. Each episode consists of what amounts to about a chapter or 10 to 12 minutes of material. In the 2 episodes that have dropped so far, an AI-generated narrator tells the story of the director of a fictional intelligence agency, one of his globe-trotting agents, and a Central Intelligence Agency analyst, all of whom are hot on the trail of a large order of pagers purchased by the devious but thinly described Crescent Shield terrorist organization. The names of the countries involved have been changed. Tel Aviv is now Zion City, for instance, but it's fairly easy to glean who everyone is supposed to be. John McDermott, co-founder of Caloroga Shark Media, the company behind the podcast, calls Pager Protocol a new pinnacle in audio storytelling, hailing the show for the way it combines the speed of artificial intelligence integration with heart-pounding suspense. Caloroga Shark's other founder, Mark Francis, says that when he read about the explosions in Lebanon, he started to have questions about how they were executed. It had the spirit of a really intriguing story, Francis says, so I put the idea into Claude, which spat out an outline of a story. The team then quickly wrote a script and put it back into the artificial intelligence for even more massaging. Once the script was at a good place, Caloroga Shark fed it into Audiosonic and 11 Labs for narration, created some podcast art with Ideogram, and used ChatGPT and Claude to create the episode descriptions. We use artificial intelligence as a tool, Francis says. It's not replacing anybody. It just gives us the ability to do things faster, quicker, better, and more efficiently for programming. While some podcast companies craft intricate pieces of audio art over months, if not years, Caloroga Shark says it's more interested in how creators can earn a return on their investment. They've launched numerous 10-minute-long podcasts. Most aren't ripped from the headlines like Pager Protocol. Topics range from the British Royals to comedy news, but each one is about the same length, with one ad break in the middle. The aim is to put them out regularly and in volume. They use artificial intelligence to work efficiently, to streamline production, and try to capture the zeitgeist faster than anyone else in the podcasting space. Francis says that because he's able to turn scripts and episodes around so quickly, he can write each week's text fairly close to the podcast's release and incorporate many of the latest revelations about the conflict in Lebanon. It helps me keep the story relatively real, he says. I don't need to speculate 10 episodes ahead of where I am right now, not knowing what will happen in 3 to 4 weeks. While the idea of a quick turnaround, generously artificial intelligence-generated podcast might sound terrifying to some fans and creators, other players in the industry see it as an inevitability. Oscar Sarander, who describes his artificial intelligence meets podcasting studio Wondercraft as Canva for audio, says that he views artificial intelligence as a way to help creatives produce at the speed of culture. While he admits there are limits to artificial intelligence, like the way the technology typically draws from past ideas rather than creating new concepts, he admires the way it might lower the barrier to entry for some brands or creators. Sarander notes there are fewer podcast creators than there are OnlyFans creators. Meanwhile, there are millions of YouTube channels, and then you've got TikTok and other social media channels, and all those creators competing for people's attention. Artificial intelligence, he says, may lead to the democratization of podcasts, ultimately resulting in what he thinks could be a more interesting and profitable industry. Granted, that's not how those deeply invested in the art of podcasting see it. Jason Saldanha, Chief Operating Officer of the nonprofit digital radio distribution company PRX, says that the creators he has worked with seem wary of artificial intelligence, in part because they believe that the real power of the medium is the host-audience relationship. While it's certainly tempting to use artificial intelligence to translate a podcast into 20 languages and just put it out into the world, it pushes the boundaries of a work's authenticity. The most successful podcasts have a one-to-one relationship with their audiences, like the audiences believe they're interacting with those people in the same room or working with them to solve some problem together, Saldanha says. Tapping an artificial intelligence voice to read the news of the day or even create a brand new tale related to the news of the day might seem tempting to those looking to make a buck podcasting, but in the long run, he thinks it's a losing game. The vast majority of audio companies are run by former radio executives who, in the 1990s, ran ad loads that were close to 50% of the content on the air, Saldanha explains. That created a moment where audiences were like, this is too many ads. I need an alternative. So they went to Napster and then Spotify. Now that those executives are working in digital audio, Saldanha says, they're applying the same tactics, looking to monetize podcasts to the hilt. Doing that while also adding more podcasts to the market will devalue a premium form of content, putting the entire podcast industry in danger. These kinds of companies are flooding the market with content to get the lowest level of engagement, and that's fine as a strategy, but it's not a long-term strategy, Saldanha says. It's gross and it's bad, and ultimately you're cutting off your nose just to make an extra dollar. Caloroga Shark doesn't see it that way. For Francis, artificial intelligence should be part of a mix of tools podcast makers use to stand out in a crowded field. Listeners will decide which shows are worthy of staying power, whether they use artificial intelligence or not, he says. Pager protocol may or may not be in that mix. That's all for today's episode of Michelle's Podcast News. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to come back tomorrow for more updates on what's happening in the podcasting community. I'm your host, Michelle Tandler, signing off. Have a great day.